James Bond fans? Oh, good. Oh, a lot of you. Awesome. My favorite agent 007 is Sean Connery, and I like his version. Apparently, we have some supporters there. I like his version because there are usually really good plot twists, and you know up front who the villain is. The antagonist always has a devious plot for seizing power, which he arrogantly takes the time to explain to Bond. I've never understood that part. Then the bad guy puts him in some precarious position and leaves him to die instead of killing him outright. But never fear, Bond always manages to free himself by sheer wit and, of course, one or two of Q's clever gadgets. In just 2 hours, Bond has saved the world and we can all breathe easier. If only real life were that simple. If you were here last week, you will recall that Joseph's dilemma was a bit more complicated than that. His older brothers had beaten him and put him into a pit. Not wanting to leave him there to die, he was sold into slavery. So the brothers made a story to explain to their father Jacob how his favorite son happened to be missing. Well, frankly, they could have told Jacob just about anything, that they never saw him come to the fields, or that Joseph decided to just go on an adventure with Ishmael sent to Egypt. Or they could have stuck a little bit closer to the truth. They could have said he was kidnapped by merchants. But no, they decided to tell Dad that Joseph must have been killed by a wild beast, probably eaten by it too, because all that's left that they could retrieve was Joseph's bloody coat, his bloody robe that he was so proud of. Fortunately, like James Bond, Joseph has been graced with the ability to land on his feet, and he does so exceptionally well when he gets to Egypt. In fact, he rises to be the overseer of the household of Potiphar, the palace guard captain. But as often happens with Joseph, when life is going well, something bad occurs, which is not his fault. In this case, Potiphar's wife shows her husband Joseph's cloak as proof that Joseph has sexually assaulted her. And even though the charge is false, Joseph winds up in jail. Well, a bad famine strikes Egypt, and Joseph, who always has had the gift of interpreting dreams, is able to help the Pharaoh save Egypt by interpreting the Pharaoh's dreams correctly. Thus, Pharaoh makes Joseph his right-hand man. Now, moving forward to today's episode, it's years later, and Jacob has sent his older sons to Egypt to buy food during the bad region-wide famine. They arrive at the Egyptian court with many other people in search of food. Who would have guessed that there would come face to face with that brother that they thought who had died? Well, even though Joseph recognizes them, they don't recognize Joseph. So he is extremely cautious at first and accuses them of being spies. They plead with him, and after mentioning that they had left a younger brother at home, Joseph demands that they bring Benjamin back to Egypt to demonstrate their sincerity. And after they bring Benjamin back, Joseph tricks them into proving their moral fiber 2 more times. At the end of the final test, when Joseph has made it appear that his brother Benjamin has stolen a silver cup, his brother Judah, and remember Judah is the one who suggested killing Joseph, Judah tells him that their father will die from grief if Benjamin doesn't return. And then he pleads with Joseph to keep him in Benjamin's place as a slave. And this is where our lesson this morning actually begins. Sitting before them on a seat of judgment, Joseph reveals, I am your brother. Is my father still alive? The Bible says they are so dismayed to realize that this is their brother Joseph that they could not utter a single word. Seriously, is it any surprise that his brothers are dumbfounded? Imagine all the possible thoughts that could have been running through their heads. They could have been livid about all of Joseph's trickery to discover their moral character. Now, actually, I think it might have been wise at this point to start groveling at his feet, like what he saw in his dream 20 years ago. But Joseph doesn't give them any opportunity to react. Instead, he says, come closer. Remember the brother who you sold into slavery? It's true. I am your brother Joseph. Now, if I were one of his brothers, I would have been struck immobile with fear at this point of imprisonment or even death, because my powerful brother could have ordered either one of them. But Joseph does the most amazing thing. He tells them not to worry and not to berate themselves for their actions. I'm guessing it took Joseph years to get rid of the anger and resentment he must have felt towards those boys. But apparently, he did just that because miraculously he tells them that it's okay because God had a plan to preserve all their lives. Just imagine how it must have taken Joseph to say that. This is one of the darkest hours about brotherhood that you will ever want to read or hear. And yet the emphasis of this lesson never seems to be on the awful things those brothers did to one another. The jealousy, the deceit, the brokenness. The narrative seems to tacitly accept that people, even brothers, will sometimes do dreadful things, things that land us in places and situations we would have never chosen for ourselves. And instead of smiting them, and instead of punishing them, he forgives them, explaining, God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant of the earth. It is worth noting here that the place where God's name finally enters this extremely long narrative is now, when against all odds, choices have been made and Joseph has reframed the injustice done to him. Joseph makes his choice, a very difficult choice, in favor of forgiveness so that life can be preserved. When I worked at MD Anderson as a chaplain, a woman one day asked me to stop by her father's room. My father is dying, she said. He wants to talk to my brother, but they haven't spoken in almost 20 years. Can you help me? As it turned out, the daughter had remained in relationship with her brother, and he lived nearby. He was willing to come, albeit reluctantly. You see, he believed his father had been in the wrong, and his father, of course, had believed that his son had been wrong. And while the son was willing to forgive his dad, he was not convinced that his dad would forgive him. The next day, the four of us sat in the father's room, and it didn't take very long for them to forgive one another, and we all wept. The following day, the son brought his wife and children to meet his dad they had never met. And I was so thankful that they didn't wait any longer, because as it happens, the dad died that night. Stories of family conflict are always that pretty. When I was doing AIDS hospice work, I had many gay patients whose families would not be reconciled with them even though they were at death's door. It literally broke my heart. How would you, how could you turn your back on your son or your brother when they were dying? I would tell my patients this story. Many, many years ago, a man who walked in the shadow of death sat at a dinner table with his friends. They had been traveling together for some time. They had laughed and wept together. They had worked and prayed together. They were like brothers to each other. And in fact, the man had called them my brothers. And as they sat around this table, the man who would soon die quietly broke bread and said to them, "This is my body, broken for you." And then he took a cup of wine and said, "This cup is my blood, God's new promise poured out for you." Miraculously, he shared that bread and that cup with all of them, even the one who betrayed him. He shared it with the one who had betrayed them, and with the one who had denied him, and the ones who would abandon him, all of them. As we share the same meal today, may we too remember. May we remember Joseph, who forgave his brothers and saved their lives. May we remember Jesus, who forgave us, offering his own life in our place. And may we remember that God always seeks to keep us in love and grace, forgiving us in order that we too might live. Will you pray with me? Merciful God, like Joseph, we don't always understand why things happen the way they do, why our own plans fail, and we find ourselves facing challenges and disappointments. Yet we too believe that you are at work in our lives and that you have a larger plan and purpose for each one of us. Give us strength to forgive past injustices that we may live for the future. Give us faith to trust you with the challenges we face. Give us perseverance to follow your dreams wherever they lead us. And give us confidence that your loving presence is always with us.